So I'm going to give a quick little update, and then we'll let you chat about this particular coffee. So hello everyone. We are once again running into some technical difficulties. So whatever the comments and announcement and title is, not the case. It's not what we're talking about today. Chris and I just were chatting while we're waiting for the roaster to join. If they join, we will revert back to whatever you see in the comments in the title. But in the meantime, we decided to go live so that we could give a quick little announcement. Chris here. Hello, Chris. Hello. Chris is going to be taking over the subscription within the coming months. And her first pick of coffee is this month's Talisman, which I don't know if you can see that little sloth on there. I don't know. Their logo has been getting lots of comments at the shop. Everybody's like, hey, is that a sloth? Yeah, that's a sloth.
It is a sloth.
And apparently sloth is a lot of people's favorite animal, so.
They're so dang cute. But they're on the farm in Nicaragua. Fernando, who is the stateside
Okay, I didn't know this.
rep.
Yeah.
Yes. So they have sloths there on the farm that you can see. So which is why they picked the sloth as their logo.
Okay. That's
just
awesome.
Hanging out. Yeah. Looking
I
at
also
the
recently
coffee.
learned that there's like the Austin Aquarium. There's a sloth that you can go hang out with and touch.
I don't know, but the Austin Aquarium is like right down the road from me. So, and it was right down the road from where you were
That's right. That's right.
previously.
Okay, Chris, why don't so you've told us there's sloths on the farm, which I didn't know. Which next week, when we hopefully are able to get Yuri and Fernando, the owners of Talisman Coffee, on the call, I will definitely be bringing that up with them. But tell us about how you found Talisman and how you picked them.
So, I have some friends who go to the farmers market at Lakeline all the time, and they were introduced to Fernando because they like good coffee too, and they kept telling me, hey, you need to try this. This is the best. This is what we've moved over to. Like, we're not drinking standard coffee anymore. This is all we're drinking. So I stopped by the farmers market, basically introduced myself, and just said, hey, can we talk about doing a partnership? So that is how.
Okay, rock on. And then they were like, partnership? What are you talking about? Who are you?
They did. And so I gave them the background, let them know that we have this subscription, this coffee subscription for local Austin roasters, and they fit the bill. So they are roasting out of Little City Coffee, so as a co-op.
Right. So for those of you who didn't know, Little City is somebody that we featured in the past. Absolutely amazing roaster. And one of my favorite things about them is that they have a pretty big space, and so they partner with other local Austin roasters, and they roast with them and allow them to kind of like rent out their space and their equipment in their downtime, because they have like 4 different. Have you been to the facility, Chris?
I have not.
We gotta go check it out. I'm gonna give you a tour. It's a cool little space.
Yeah, I would like to. So.
Yeah, and they have like giant roasters. I think they have like 4 different 10-kilo roasters, which is way too much production for any one company that I know of. Anyways, yeah. So Talisman roasting with Little City amongst other roasters that work in that space.
Yeah. And I went with the dark roast this month, just because I like a darker roast. So I thought we'd give them a try and see what kind of feedback we got.
Which is awesome. I know that we were talking about this, how you were like nervous about like choosing something for your own tastes, and I'm over here like, please choose something for your own tastes. For the past 2 years that we've been doing this, it's all been my tastes, and like I'm sure like I enjoy it. That's great, but I'm sure people get bored of that. And I'm like, wait a second, let's get something different in the mix. So we've got this coffee, which is It's solid. I probably personally I wouldn't have picked it because dark roast, just those words kind of turned me off. But I'm glad you
Right.
picked it. It's a good little coffee.
Yeah, so they also have a medium roast, obviously, and then they have a natural light roast, which is, I'm trying to remember exactly how Fernando explained this to me, but it's just processed differently, and they didn't get as much product for that to roast, like because it's a
Gotcha.
different bean. So
It's a different bean. That's interesting. So
yeah,
they own their own farm, right? And they grow it there.
yes, they have correct.
And they have different varietals that they grow on their own farm.
If I'm remembering correctly, and if Yuri jumps on today, he can correct me.
Yeah, we'll
If
note this down
not,
as a question to ask him later.
uh, yeah, like we can ask him next weekend or Fernando next weekend because I'm probably butchering some of this stuff. But memory is saying yes. I think they have a couple of varietals, but don't hold me to
Okay.
that.
Understood. That's cool. So natural, I guess now is as good a time as any to get into what little I know about the differences in processing. We've talked about this a couple of times. Do you remember what the differences in processing are, Chris?
I do not at this point. No.
So we've got washed, natural, and honeyed are the three like main types of process. There's a couple of other weird ones out there that never mind. We'll talk about those later. All right, so washed is essentially where okay, we've picked all of the coffee cherries, all the coffee fruit. Let's power hose it down so that you're only left with the pit, the bean itself, and all the fruit, the meat of the fruit is gone. Natural is the oldest processing method, and it's basically where you say, hey, I'm going to lay out all of this fruit onto either the ground or these raised beds and let it naturally dry, sun-dried. So natural and sun-dried are the same. They're equivalent. And then after it dries, you get this like raisin-like thing, and you're like, how do I get rid of the raisin part? I'm going to spray it all down with a hose or wash it. And but natural refers to it being sun-dried first before being processed into the like pulp and the bean. And then last but not least is honeyed, and honeyed is essentially where it's allowed to ferment for a while. So rather than spreading it all out on these drying racks, you kind of pile it all up together, let it ferment, and then power hose it down so you're left with just the bean. The difference in these three processing methods is like if you were to take the same coffee and remove all other variables, so it's like same farm, same growing conditions, same harvesting time, different processing methods, same roast, same brew method, same brew recipe, and you were to line those up and taste all of those coffees, the difference between those three coffees would be that the washed coffee tastes the crispest, like you're able to differentiate the flavors that the origin flavors, like the natural flavors of the coffee fruit. You can tell what those are. Like you're able to kind of parse that apart, and it's like, hey, I know what's going on here. A natural one is going to have those flavors, but there's going to be like like savory or like umami flavor on top of that, almost like there was just like a pinch of like soy sauce or like rosemary or something else added to it that kind of muddles up those flavors but adds another element to it. Honeyed is all of those flavors going to be muddled together. It's going to be really difficult to distinguish between them, but it's going to have this like natural like sweetness to the side of it.
Okay.
So like thinking about it in terms of like if you were to take a tart cherry and eat it, it would be tart. If you were to take that tart cherry and like turn it into a maraschino cherry, it would be sweet, and it wouldn't taste the same kind of tartness. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. So it does.
So if they have, like, this is something that I am constantly looking for, is like one farm that can give me three different processing methods, roasted by one roaster who says, yeah, no, this is a cool thing. There's just no real market for it. Oh, what is this? We getting Yuri? Let's try it. You want to try it?
Yes, let's try it.
Let's try it.
Because he can tell me how wrong I am.
He may be watching this and just like, what are you guys talking about?
I know. He might be watching, being like, I have to get on. I have to correct this.
I have to fix what they're talking about. Oh my god. All right. Hey, Yuri. It looks like I'm gonna check my email real quick to see if we've got any more information from you. I still can't connect. I am really sorry. Don't worry about it, Yuri. What we're currently doing is just kind of talking about your coffee anyways. I'm enjoying it. Chris is enjoying it right now. And we're going to reschedule the call with you next weekend. We're going to try to work on the technical difficulties and figure that out in that time. Meanwhile, Chris and I just decided to jump on live because I wanted to announce that she's moving in to take over the subscription. And I'm excited about that. Chris, is there anything else you want to add? Or are we going to call it?
Well, I was going to ask. So, since it is a dark roast, a lot of people may not like a dark roast or may not be used to a dark roast. So, how can they adjust brewing or extraction to get some of those different notes out of the coffee?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so when you... Oh, hey there, little dogu. When you roast coffee, you're adding heat to it, and so that organic matter, some of it is going to burn, right? And dark roast just refers to like how much of it got burned. Like burned is a scale. It's like a spectrum. So dark roast, depending on who is roasting it, doesn't give you a whole lot of information. Actually, I haven't even looked at how dark of a roast this is. Okay, so when I'm looking at these beans, they're not oily, which means I would consider this like a medium roast. Like the darker it gets, the more oily they tend to be. They are kind of like all at a darker color than the kind of coffees that I tend to gravitate towards. And so understanding that about the coffee, saying, okay, this is not like a full city plus plus. This is not going into like Italian roast or French roast territory. So this falls within the purview of third wave dark roast, like it's on the darker end of what might be considered third wave coffee. Therefore, when I approach the brewing, I know that I can cut back on some of the carbon, like I want to say burnt because it's not fully burnt. I'm going to cut back on some of the carbon flavors that exist in this coffee by extracting less. So we've talked about in the past like how the things that you think about when you're extracting. So like as a brewer, when you're brewing coffee, there's really only those four things that you can play with: the temperature of the water, the grind size, the ratio of coffee to water, and what's the other one? Length of extraction. So yeah. So what I would do is I would try to extract less. I would use a coarser grind. I would brew a little bit faster. I would use lower temperature water, and just see what I could get out of the cup that way to kind of lessen that. And yes, that is something that people have reached out to me about. They're like, hey, you've converted me to this light and medium roast nonsense, and now you send me a darker roast? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm like, you're supposed to try it and see what you think, and then dial it in to your tastes based on what you are experiencing.
All right. And you said earlier, third wave coffee. For those people who are joining us who maybe their first time, or not know a whole lot about what you're speaking of, explain third wave coffee.
You're asking me to do the third wave spiel? I'll do the third wave
I
spiel. am. How many times have you heard my third wave spiel? Third wave.
A few.
Okay. Third wave coffee. All right, so third wave coffee, first wave coffee refers to World War II, when coffee was first mass produced. So coffee existed before World War II, of course. It's existed for a really long time, but it wasn't really prevalent. Like, it was kind of like a alternate tea in the gentry in Britain and America, and then before that it was mostly like a Middle Eastern, like specific, you have to go to a coffee shop kind of thing. But World War II, all of these farms were changing their crops to coffee, and you just had like a ton of it produced and like roasted and shipped out to soldiers. So it was kind of like it was for that extra kick, and that's kind of where the beginnings of coffee culture in America specifically started. So things that are first wave coffee are things like Folgers, Maxwell House, even like Illy, anything that is in a can and has like an incredible shelf life, especially if it's pre-ground, that constitutes the kind of remnants of first wave coffee that you can still experience. Second wave coffee refers to the advent of like Starbucks, Tim Hortons, Costa Coffee, Caribou, what have you, like these kind of large chain store organizations. They're like, hey, we have this massive coffee supply. We don't have soldiers for it anymore. We don't need to produce as much. Or like we don't have the demand for the amount that we're producing. How can we repackage this in order to serve it to more people? And so you have these like coffee shops popping up, these coffee chains, this drive-through culture, and it becomes this like, hey, I'm going